Welcome back, film fans. Got a little bit of a different one for you today. It's a bit of a kind of random topic video, right? But I've spoken a little bit about this before, which is I kind of want to talk about modern movie consumption habits, mainly by virtue of what I mean is streaming services and my kind of issues with them. But I want to talk about one issue in particular because I think what I'm going to end up doing is doing a kind of a loose series about my various issues with them and what I think what they mean for movie consumption and movie culture, like movie fandom, all those kinds of those different elements. But I got thinking recently that this last week about this one issue in particular that I want to address with you guys. So, and the way I want to kind of talk about this or frame this is, I think a great way of actually thinking about your the kind of modern movie consumption habits, including like your own in particular, is to think about what they were like pre-streaming, because streaming is presented to us a really real kind of seismic shift of movie consumption, essentially how we consume movies. Because let's be honest, and I'll include myself in this, how much of our movie consumption is now done via streaming? Most of it. Most of our first-time watchers now are probably, even amongst like ardent movie collectors like myself, with physical media, most of it's probably done via streaming services. Even catching up with new releases, I would say. Whereas cinema's kind of been relegated, I think, in the modern age to kind of the alternative. That's the thing you do sometimes as like I said, as an alternative to your typical movie consumption, which is, of course, in the comfort of your own home, as it were. And the ease of access of these. You can watch a movie on your phone, you can watch a movie via a games console, your TV, your smart TV, all these different things that you can have. And essentially, what we're talking about in the modern age of movie consumption is platforming. Movies are on platforms, as it were, as opposed to, say, in the cinema or on a TV channel. And the way I want to think about this is, so I've got two particular scenarios in my head which I think focus on this problem really, really well, of something that's kind of been lost in modern movie consumption. I think it's really, I think it's really sad that it's been lost, actually. I think it's kind of important to talk about. But I want you to picture, so pre-streaming services, you're at home, maybe you're about to go to bed, or maybe if you're younger, you've been sent to bed, you're meant to be asleep. Maybe you're at a school night or something, right? And maybe you're lucky enough you have a television in your own room, you're in bed, and you're just kind of like surfing the channels before you go to sleep, kind of type thing. And you stumble across a movie. Maybe this movie is only 20 minutes in, maybe it's nearing the end. Maybe you only catch the last 20 minutes of it. But nonetheless, it captures your attention and you watch it and you see these few images that maybe they create this kind of indelible impression on you. And let's say you don't catch the title of that movie. Okay, maybe you only watch 20 minutes and you decide to go to bed, but nonetheless those images stay in your consciousness and your mind for a long time, and you don't catch the movie title, and then years later you actually watch the movie not knowing it's that movie, where all those images for years have been buried in your consciousness, and you have that moment of realization of, oh, this is the movie, this is the thing that I saw years and years prior. An example of that for me would be when I was having a sleepover with my friend, and again, the magic of television, where you put it on, you got the glow, you're in the dark, and it was really late, and we caught the final 10 minutes of Phantasm 2. It was. Had no idea it was Phantasm 2, couldn't have told you the name of the movie afterwards at the time or anything, and I just remember the final moments in the hearse and the kind of like twist ending. And then a few years later, I ended up watching, I got the Phantasm box set and I watched Phantasm 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And then when it came to 2, I was like, oh my God, it's this movie. This is the film that I saw at my friend's a few years prior, that always kind of stuck with me. And there's a magic to that I think is one of the integral pleasures of movies that I think we're losing with streaming services. And I'll get to why in a second with my introduction for the second example, which is, again, let's say you're watching television And how many of us have done this, where you stumble across a movie, and it's a movie you've seen, and it's on TV, it's on a TV channel, right? A terrestrial channel with ads, say, and let's say it's 20, 30 minutes in, and you kind of go, I like this scene, I'll watch this. And then you find yourself, you're still watching it 30 minutes later, an hour later, hour and a half later. It's a movie you've watched dozens of times. Maybe you own it. You own a DVD, you own the Blu-ray, whatever it might be, the VHS, if we're going way back, right? And, you're on your 5th ad break, and you kind of go, why am I watching this like this when I can just get the DVD off the shelf and I would have finished the movie an hour ago and I would have enjoyed it just as much, right? I've seen this loads of times before, so why am I watching it now? Or would you have enjoyed it just as much? Because I think an argument here is I think there's a specific pleasure in having a movie programmed for you, right? Of a movie being on at a specific channel, a specific place at a specific time, if you like, and you're watching it in the knowledge of, you might be watching it alone. You could be in the physical company of other people, you might not be. But let's say you're watching it alone. You're watching it in the knowledge of, you're not the only one watching this show, this film. Could be a show, but this film at that particular moment in time, because it's public service broadcasting, you're not going to be the only person watching it, right? There's a magic to that in knowing that you're watching it with other people and experiencing it at the same time, even if they're not in the same physical space. Okay, that would be a pleasure, of course, that we give to going to the cinema. And there's, like I said, there's a distinct pleasure in a movie being on at a specific time, which you would not have caught it. Almost like it's serendipity, right? You would not have caught that movie at that time or any other time. Let's say it's a Tuesday at 10 o'clock at night or something, and that's the only time it's on, right? Better yet, maybe we, because we all used to do this, you'd flick through the TV guide. Remember those physical TV guides that some people still buy, but anyway, remember those physical TV guides if you don't buy them anymore. And, I know my mum still does, for example, where you'd see a film that's on, let's say Tuesday at 9, and you go, oh, is it on any other time of the week? No, okay, that's when I have to watch it, okay? And you don't know if it's ever going to be shown again. Okay, so it makes film kind of somewhat more precious, doesn't it? It makes it feel more, like I say, magical in a way, and distinct. And that's something that's been lost with streaming services, right? Because the thing with streaming services is you don't have that sense of precariousness. You do, but it's not obvious. So what I mean by that is, movies that are on streaming platforms are kind of on for an indeterminate amount of time, unless they're native to the platform. So let's say you have a Netflix production that's on Netflix, or a Disney movie that's on Disney Plus, for example, or an Amazon Prime Studio movie that's on, or an Amazon Studio movie that's on Amazon Prime. That's going to be on there indefinitely. Otherwise, you don't know. There's an indeterminacy there of how long the movie is going to be on the platform for. But precisely because of that, you keep deferring watching the movie, right? How many of us have created watch lists on these platforms of movies that we've never watched? I mean, I've got watch lists of movies that have been come on and off the platform for years and are no longer available. And it's precisely because I think it will be there next week. I think it will be there next week. It'll be there next month. It's fine. And so we defer them. We defer the pleasure of watching the movie. But the very nature, the pleasure of that movie has changed, I think. Because, like I said, there's a distinct pleasure in having a movie programmed for you at a specific place and time. You can either choose to watch it or not, but if you do, it's in the knowledge of knowing that it's been done for you. And I think, so therefore movies, I think as a consequence, have been kind of relegated, actually, with streaming services. They've kind of, their pleasures have been relegated to something else. I mean, how many people now put on a movie on a streaming platform when they finally decided, which is something I'll get to in a second, which is my main point that I want to make in this video, but they put on a movie and, it just becomes background noise to them. They put on the movie and they're on their phone the whole time. Or maybe they're having a conversation with the people in the room, or maybe they're doing the ironing or the cleaning or the cooking. Movie become a kind of background noise. Or it's, in kind of media speak, it's been a kind of, it requires now a secondary level of attention. And movies weren't designed to be consumed in that way. So much so, actually, I think that that's become our kind of primary way of consuming movies now. Like, I think movies are starting to become designed with that in mind. And so how many movies now just seem like they are audiovisual overload? You know, in our kind of ADHD culture of overstimulation of audiovisual materials to grab our attention, you know. I mean, I find some movies now excessively loud and there's kind of no dynamics in the sound anymore. And I feel that's a consequence of kind of streaming culture, in which the kind of increased supposed accessibility of movies that you can kind of watch at any place, any time on a particular device has kind of made movies feel less precious and less precarious, and I suppose less pleasurable in a sense. Or at least they've changed the nature of that, I would argue. And, you know, I think this goes back to a kind of an idea that I had recently, actually, with streaming platforms, which moves away from kind of the idea of a movie being programmed away from you, programmed for you, pardon me. In fact, actually, here's a great example. I was too young to remember this distinctly, or let's say watch it and actually when it was on, but I'm fully aware of it, of the series kind of Movie Drone, right? Which was a kind of a series of curated movies by, first it was the filmmaker Alex Cox, then it moved on to Mark Cousins, who's a filmmaker now, but he was also a kind of critic and an author. Probably best known for the Story of Film series, which is a 10-part, 1-hour series where he looks at the history of cinema through different movements. From a book of the same name that he wrote, actually, which I did read in my teens and really did heavily shape my kind of cinephile movie habits and tastes, actually, to a degree. And Alex Cox and Mark Cousins, the two hosts, you know, Mark Cousins followed Alex Cox, would essentially, they would have a season of movies that they handpicked and curated for you, that were kind of, they were ways of you watching movies that you wouldn't ordinarily have come across or maybe have seen. And they were avenues into different aspects or areas of cinematic terrain that you wouldn't necessarily have discovered otherwise. And that brings back the role of a kind of critic or a kind of film person as a kind of arbiter of taste, or an arbiter of what I would call kind of cinematic mapping. Sometimes you need that mapping to help navigate and discover cinema. Great cinema, interesting cinema, challenging cinema. That is completely undone by streaming platforms. When you go onto a streaming platform, you've just got an interface of just a myriad of movies that are kind of indiscernible, or just a mesh. There's no one really guiding you in a sense. There's algorithms that are supposedly tailored towards you, but they depend on how much you use the platform, really. And some of them, I don't think they've really been effectively improved over time. I mean, I don't find much use in them at all. And we're kind of missing that kind of that function that is film curation, which is a distinct pleasure in of itself, that is again lost as the result of deliberative programming that you can't really get with streaming platforms. You have something like Mubi, which does have that sense of movie creation, curation, pardon me, and programming, where it gives you a film each day over a month. They're doing different like mini seasons of films. But that's something you already have to know about. You already have to be a kind of cinephile in order to take advantage and know about and enjoy Mubi. Whereas on the television, it's something which is, it's programmed for you. You watch that movie that particular time, or you don't watch it at all. And so your attention is locked in because you've made a deliberate choice to watch that movie at that particular time. And there's a selection process going on there. Whether it's flawed or not, or interesting or not, there's still a selection process going on there. And going back to interfaces of streaming, which is the kind of the key point I want to illustrate here. This is the realization I had the other day, is because how many of us have had this issue where you go onto your streaming platform of choice and, you know, you're trying to pick a movie. 20 minutes later, you still haven't picked one. Maybe it's 30, 40 minutes later. Maybe it's an hour if you're with someone because you're arguing, or you just can't decide collectively over what to watch. How many times have you admired an indecision as the result of a streaming platform? Frequently for me, okay? Or I spend a lot of the time, like I say, deferring the watching of the movies and making watch lists of movies that I never watch because I think they'll be there constantly. Even though I know very well that they will disappear and go onto another streaming platform probably. I've noticed that Netflix and Amazon Prime have a tendency to kind of, they exchange when the movies are available. There's a kind of an implicit agreement there with how it works, perhaps. I don't know. But how many times have you been just lost in indecision over what to watch? In fact, you spend longer choosing the movie than watching a movie itself. That's a distinct displeasure of movie platforms, of streaming services. And the realization I got to was that these interfaces are deliberately user unfriendly by design. Because what I think they're designed to do is, it's not to say for you to consume as many movies as possible with ease of access and, using search functions. Because I actually think, for example, take Netflix. A lot of the times you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what's on the platform and you don't know what's not on the platform. So a simple search function of typing in a specific movie, you don't know necessarily what you want to watch. So what good does that do? An A to Z function would be more useful, but then how long do you have to spend looking through A to Z? A lot of good movies, interesting movies, are buried in these platforms, actually, because they're not the movies that they want you to watch, as it were. Whether that's their own studio ones or the ones that are on there, they think are the most popular ones. Well, how do you determine what's most popular if you're burying the other movies? It's self-circular logic, isn't it? But like I say, with these platforms, that happens, and you can't decide on bloody what to watch because you don't know what's on there and you don't know what's not on there, that kind of thing. And so you've sat there and, like I say, you might not even end up watching a movie in the first place. And that's a huge problem, because what ends up happening with that, essentially speaking, is the streaming platform is designed to just keep your attention. It doesn't care about what movies you watch, if you indeed watch anything. Because what streaming platforms are based upon is the logic of the more time you spend on their platform, whether it's consuming a movie or not, is the more time your attention is not spent elsewhere. So we're dealing with the attention economy here. And that's what streaming platforms are concerned with. Why do you think, for example, how many Netflix series are way overstretched? Something that can be done in 1 hour is 6 1-hour episodes. Particularly documentary series. Completely overstretched. Why? Because they want your time. It's about your time. It's about the attention economy. And that's a real big problem. Okay? Because that's not something which a TV channel, of course, wanted you to tune into their channel for ratings. Of course. When you watch a movie, you watch a movie. It's the length of the movie with ad breaks. You don't get that problem. Okay? So we live in a kind of almost like a diametrically opposed culture now. And in fact, if I actually point out a lot of these problems to people younger than myself, I mean, this channel is mainly watched by people of my age or older. So you're going to relate to a lot of these things. But if saying this now to someone in their 20s, early 20s and below, a lot of the time, I might as well be speaking in tongues, an alien language, because they don't know about these pleasures that I'm talking about, these specific movie pleasures. So the nature of movie watching has fundamentally changed in movie consumption and movie culture, movie fandom. And, I get strange looks sometimes when I say I still collect physical media, for example. Like, you still collect DVDs? They don't even know what 4K is as a kind of, as a media form. Don't even know what it is. Okay, Blu-rays, yeah, they might have an idea, but they never physically collected them. DVDs, they're kind of like, oh yeah, DVDs you mean? I said, well, also Blu-rays, 4Ks, what are they? They think it's some kind of like antiquated way of movie consumption. And maybe in some regards that it is. I mean, I'm heartened by the fact that movie physical media collecting has gone back up. Not just with films, but also music, for example, vinyls. I think there was a statistic about how they've returned to pre-21st century levels for the first time or something, or maybe they've outsold CDs for the first time, or CDs have I'm trying to remember what the statistic was, but it's really good to see. And I think a lot of people are doing that because, consciously or not, people are chiming into the aspects of streaming that we actually really dislike now, actually. whether it's dips in quality, because obviously it relies on two things, the quality of the streaming service and your internet connection. So it's never going to be as good quality as physical media anyway. Or whether it's the fact that, again, people are just sick of movies appearing and disappearing, or the content being dictated by, like I say, the need to keep you on the platform for as long as possible. Or whether it's, for example, and the other thing, of course, the other issue that we have on the other end of the scale is movies that are deliberately made by these platforms. I always use David Fincher's The Killer, for example. Is that ever going to get a physical media release? Do I have to resubscribe to Netflix in order to watch that movie again? I guess so, legally, anyway. And those are issues for me. As a kind of film fan, you want to be able to own the movies that you want to watch, okay? Now, obviously, when I'm talking about curation and programming, that's different in the sense that a lot of that, the pleasures of that were before the idea of physically owning a movie. But even then, like I say, we still do it. We still consume movies that are programmed at a particular time for us, even if we own them. Because there is a distinct pleasure in knowing that you're watching a movie collectively, kind of in the ether with other people, as it were. So it kind of, there's a disembodied experience to it, a collective disembodied experience to it, if you know what I mean. But also there's just this idea of, it gives a film a sense of weight and importance that streaming platforms just completely destroy, I think, or undermine. It's inherent in how they're made, right? It's inherent in their nature, as it were. And a lot of these things I don't think we ever really considered when they were emerging. I don't think we really took on how much of a shift, how much of a paradigm shift in movie culture this would create. So yeah, those are some of the issues that I have, and some of my thoughts. What are your guys' thoughts on streaming platforms? Like I say, look, we all use them, right? I'd be surprised if no one doesn't use them at all. But do you find that these issues are there with you? And do you agree, for example, with the pleasures of movie curation and programming? Most of us have great memories of discovering movies for the first time. The movie here, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, is a movie I stumbled upon back when Film 4 relaunched. Remember Film 4? Remember when that relaunched in the mid-ish noughties, 2000s, around 2004, 2005? In fact, they had a great show on when it relaunched. I think it was like the 50 greatest movies or movie moments or something. It was something like that. And it was like a real kind of eccentric, idiosyncratic selection of 50 movies, most of which were, of course, going to be shown on Film 4, which is why they were highlighting them. But you had different people talking about them. It was a specifically made programme, again, talking about these movies. And it was great. And again, that was a great way of seeing new movies, is you'd see each week, oh, okay, what's on Film 4, And dedicated movie channels. And Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I remember being in bed and I put the Film 4 on and this movie was showing, and I remember recording it on my VHS and watching it as I was recording it, and I always will remember that experience. And there's something, again, really magical about that. And it's those kind of experiences that you take away with you, and that's again the power and the magic of the medium. I think that's kind of been compromised, certainly changed, maybe lost in the age of streaming. That I think we kind of, a lot of us are unconsciously or consciously trying to claw back with whether it's collecting physical media again, or maybe a return to the kind of the idea of movie curation and programming. I don't know, in a sense that is more popular and accessible and common again, I guess. Like the idea of, for example, having a specially created program of movies on something as accessible as Channel 4, which are kind of offer you different, engaging, challenging cinema, whether it introduces you to a Cronenberg or a Lynch, and then that's your avenue for exploring something else, which is really kind of one of the key functions of movie criticism and I think, and cinephilia. The idea of that happening now is just unimaginable, like literally unimaginable. And that, I think that points to a wider cultural shift in how we consume and view the arts now in general, actually. But which is maybe a subject, another wider subject for kind of a whole other video, which I could easily talk about. But yeah, those are my thoughts anyway. Let me know what you guys think. If you like the video, of course, like it, give it a like, give the channel a subscribe if you like my content. It's the first time you're watching, please do feel to subscribe, be part of the discussions. I kind of do videos every week. Sometimes they're random, like this one. Sometimes they have themes. But like I said, I'll probably do a few more videos on streaming over time with my kind of, the discontents, the issues that I have with them. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys, about what you think. And as always, take care, and I will see you on the next one. Keep watching, guys.